Hello everyone, I'm JC and welcome to Plugin of the Week, a point blank weekly broadcast from our hub in London. Today is Friday, we've got a lot of things going on in each classroom. I can hear the recording vocal in Studio 2 editing, we've got mastering in Studio 1, in Studio 3. Students today are working on the module Electronic Live with a lot of controllers, and including iPads, modular synth, etc. The class in the DJ and production and basic business, so it's really quite busy today. In this week, Plugin of the Week, I want to look at a compressor that I've always wanted to try and just never got round to, really. It's the UAD Shadow Hills mastering compressor. In terms of hardware, it's a very expensive piece of hardware. It's about £8,000, I believe. And it was designed mostly, as its name implies, for mastering. However, we're going to test it on other things as well. And it's, I mean, probably the reason I never tried it before is I felt it was a bit daunting, just the interface, you know, it can do so much. But actually, once you just go through the manual with it and play with it, it's pretty straightforward. So what makes it a little bit different? I mean, first of all, the hardware is a great sounding hardware. It's really discreet, really clean. That's why it's used for mastering, you know. But it has features that are quite unique in its design. So what I'm going to start with, actually, I'm not going to we'll look at in the context of mastering a little bit, but first I want to show you the kind of all the parameters of this plugin, and to do that I'm going to put it on drums. Actually, I'd love to try it on drums, and I think sometimes to see what more in the context of shaping the sound, shaping the transient, add some coloration depending what type of compressor you use. However, in a live drum, the beast. And I'm going to completely bypass it to start with, and maybe I'll play you a little bit of the track in the context so we've got a bit of an idea what's going on. That's the chorus of the track. It's where it's kind of everything is playing full on. I mean, the mix is kind of a mix in progress. It's not really mixed, really. It's kind of a rough mix, I would say. It's one of the multi-track that was kindly given to us by a New York band called Jupiter One. The track is called Volcano, and students on our course can practice with that multi-track. As you can see, it's a big multi-track, so plenty of opportunities for you to try things. So I'm gonna solo the drums so we've got a better idea on how it sounds. You see a drum, there's quite a few mic, and I'm not even gonna do parallel compression. I'm just gonna put it on the bus to see what it does. There's compression going on, you know, on some of the others individual channel, but let's see what it does on a drum bus for a start. So in its design, the Shadow Hill has two compressors essentially. So that's already why you've got all those functions. Here you have an optical compressor with the threshold and the makeup gain. In design, the way this compressor works, that means it's a bit smoother, it's a bit slower typically as an optical, but they're really smooth compression, really musical. The way it works, it's a fixed ratio. You know, as you can see, it's literally two parameters, very much like an LA2A, for example, the classic opto compressor. It's a fixed ratio of 2:1, and in terms of the release, it happened in two stages. 80%, according to the design, you know, 80% of the sound compress as a quick release, and then the remaining 20% as a release of about 1 second. So you can use it on two. What I love about this as well is you can use it in two different individual mono. You've got the left channel here, the right channel here, or you can use it in stereo mode. So to switch the mode you see in here. So here I'm in dual mono, here and I'm stereo. In stereo mode you use only the left hand side to control the right hand side. One thing I would have loved is actually when I move one, I would have loved to see the other one move as well. It's just for me, I find it easier to use visually, but that's a small thing. So to switch on a mode, you put it here. So because I'm in dual stereo mode, if I change here, it's hard, the optical compressor is out, and here it's in. So we're going to start with that. One of the things I love about as well is the design of the VU, really nice VU meters here. The VU are not linked. What it allows you to do is you could have this VU, the left-hand side, showing you the optical compressor, what it does in terms of gain reduction, or the other second compressor, which we'll get into, or the output. That means you could literally visually have some feedback on the optical, the second compressor, or have it as a compressor here and the output here. So it gives you some nice visual feedback to when you're operating it. So, I mean, it's bypassed at the moment, and you also have here the hardwire bypass. So another thing that many mastering engineers do sometimes is when the circuitry, the electronic of a piece of equipment is really nice, like it is in this case, you know, for the hardware. And I think the emulation is doing a pretty decent job at emulating that. Is that some people like to bypass, actually not process it, but just put it through the circuitry just to get that sound, you know. So again, by bypassing all compressors, and all of them are bypassed now, literally, if I put it on here, I've bypassed compressor, but I'm going through the circuitry, hardwired. Or I put it out. So if I do that, you're literally in bypass mode. Nothing happens to it. See? I mean, the bypass here or here. Now I'm going to put the hardwire in. That means now we're using the circuitry. And I'll talk about the output transformers, because it's a big part in the design of that particular compressor. So I'm going to start with applying a little bit of compression with the optical compressor first. So I'm putting it in. You see here I'm getting the reduction. I'm monitoring the VU meters here are showing me both optical for now, but I could put it here on output, so it gives you the output. And here is the threshold, so I'm bringing the threshold. And the more we compress, could I have a little bit more level on the speakers, please? Just because it's hard otherwise to tell. Okay, so I'm compressing quite a fair bit of it, and I'm going to bring a bit of makeup gain to. So here you hear. That is a nice job as well, isn't it? I mean, it is designed as a very transparent compressor for mastering, you know, quite to be used subtly. But I think I've read, and you know, I was quite keen to try that on mix bus and individual. I can see it working really, really well. I mean, it does a great job on the drum straight away here. So you hear how it has tamed the transient a little bit, brought up in between sounds, bringing all that ambience room, really giving it a nice character. Now, before we move on to the second compressor section, I want to discuss a little bit the transformers. One of the features of this compressor, and I mean, if any of you have worked with the hardware, I mean, I've worked with it, but not using it myself. I had a couple of tracks mastered by a mastering engineer who used the hardware on those tracks, so I really love the result of it. So since then, I really wanted to try, but I don't have it, so I couldn't really A/B with the hardware. But one of the big features of the Shadow Heat compressor, it has 3 great transformers. It's got a nickel, an iron, and a steel. And the idea behind it is that the nickel is the most transparent one, maybe with a bit of lift in the top end. It gives you that kind of hi-fi sound, if you like. And then the second one, the iron, is transformer. I think gives you had some harmonic distortion, I believe, some even second harmonic, so very musical, but starting to bring a bit more distortion. And the third one, the steel one, is the most radical. It's the one that gives you the most coloration, has a little boost in the bottom end as well. So let's try. I mean, I think they're very subtle, I've got to say, in that kind of environment where I'm working with at the moment. It's quite hard to tell, if I'm totally honest. But let's have a listen. That's the cleanest one. The second one, like the iron, so a little bit of harmonic distortion. And that's the third one, the one that has the most coloration coming up now. I mean, on that kind of rock drum, I think I would definitely go with that kind of like more coloration. So let's go with that. Okay, so now what I'd love to do now is let's bring the second compressor. And the second compressor by design, it's called discrete, which is essentially a very discrete VCA, voltage control amplifier, VCA compressor. So VCA compressor are a bit more ruthless. You can go with faster attack. It has attack, it has released. Release mode, what's interesting is they've got these features that if you put the release in dual, it's got exactly the same characteristic as the first compressor, the opto. But for the drums, I'm going to go with a very slow attack, very short release, and I'm going to try this crazy ratio. You've got a 1.21, a 2.1, a 4.1, 8.1, and then this one, I think it's called Flood, which is basically a brick wall, like a limiter 20. So I'm going to go with that for the drum, just to see what it gives us. So to activate the second compressor, discrete, I'm putting it on now. And then you bring the threshold according to all your different setup, and you've got the gain here as well. Another thing that is really nice, it has got a sidechain which act at 90 Hertz to avoid the compressor to create that kind of pumping effect, which sometimes is suitable on drums, especially rock drum. I think can work really well. But let's try. Let's bring it into line now. So I'm going to put this VU meter in discrete mode, so I can see what it does. Here I'm hammering it, and obviously changing the ratio gives you great result. Without the entire compressor. And it's pretty heavily compressed, but that's the kind of sound I like. Like Tony Visconti used to say, compressor is the sound of rock and roll. And certainly works here. Let's put it in the context of the track. Get out of my house. Get out. Get out. Get out of my house. Get out. Get out of my house. Get out. Get out. Get out of my house. Get out. Get out. Get out of my house. Get out. So here it is. So that's the Shadow Hill compressor used on the drum bus, and I'm a big fan. I'm a really, really big fan. I think the combination of being able, think of it as you can use 3 compressors, because you can use only the opto, only the discrete, or both of them combined. And then you've got the transformer, the coloration of the transformers. I'm becoming, I've only used it for a few days now, if I'm totally honest, and I'm becoming already a big fan. And yeah, I can see that becoming very much part of my setup. So let's move now with another use of it, which is by default what it's supposed to be known for, is in the mastering configuration. So in this track, I'll take you quickly what I've done. It's a dubstep track from our mastering course and our dubstep, our electronic dance music course as well. Before I tend to hit a compressor in mastering, I tend to EQ a little bit to rebalance. If you listen, let's have a listen without anything. You may want to turn the speaker a little bit down. Thanks, you. This track, it sounds pretty cool, except that for me there's not enough headroom for mastering straight away. Typically you would want 6 dB headroom, let's say 5. Doesn't give you much. But for me there's quite few resonance going on in the bottom end. So what I've done on this track is I'm using the UAD Brainworks. And by the way, Brainworks are the team that worked in collaboration with UAD and the original designer for the Shadow Hill. So it's been coded by Brainworks. So I've used that to do a bit of deeping at different resonance places. As you can see here, I've got one at about 160, 214, and 87, where those resonances were, for me, a bit of a problem, really. And I've also used the gain to bring down, to give me that headroom back. So now I can work a little bit better. And then I've used the Manley again. I'm a massive fan of the Massive Passive Manley, the mastering version of it. And I've used that more for bringing up a little bit of a high, mid, and top end. And if you listen straight away with those little corrections, the track feels that much little bit more balanced, I think, for me, in terms of what's going on in the bass. And also I've added, just for the fun of it, our good friend the Pultec. I wanted again some coloration, some warm analog. It's quite digital tracks, and I wanted to bring that. So I've done the boost at 30 Hertz, and many people may be surprised because we tend to know that we cut everything at 30 Hertz, but sometimes it can work, you know. I wanted that kind of sub, that track needed that, and I've got a fair bit of boost at 16K as well to bring a bit of air. So now I'm happy with the track being more balanced, but I just wanted to, it's one of those tracks, like, unlike the drums, and that's why I wanted to show the drums first. The drums could really do with that kind of compression. This one, really, it's one of those tracks that, first of all, in mastering, I never tend to compress too much. A couple of dBs, you know, 1, 2 here and there. But this track, as soon as you start compressing too much, it doesn't really work. So I'll show you what it does here on this track. And again, I'm monitoring here optical and discrete, and you can see they're kind of working different, slightly different. You know, they're all operating doing their own thing. So I'm gonna bypass the discrete and start with the optical. And we could, I think it really helps keeping that bass a little bit more there, but in a subtle way. And then the discrete kind of does that as well, but acting in other places as well in between where the opto is not picking up. So it gives you a nice balance. Again, it shows how those two compressors can be dealt in different ways. And again, for mastering here, I've gone with a very slow attack. And this time around for the output transformer, I've gone with the nickel one, which is the cleanest one, because I didn't want to bring too much coloration on the transformer output. And also for the compressor here, as you notice, I put the sidechain here. So that's why the discrete is not responding too much to the bass. So in a way, the optical here on that one deals with the bass, and this one deals with little thing here and there to keep the dynamic, and then I'll leave the limiting to the rest of it at the final stage to bring up the level. But if we compare, to bring a little bit more on the output, and again. Let's put it without again. And with. I hope you've enjoyed discovering, for those of you who don't know the Shadow Hills compressor yet, and who have a UAD, I would strongly recommend try the 14 days demo. Obviously we're going into Black Friday, so UAD, like many other manufacturers, are going to do a lot of deals. I believe there's quite a big reduction on the Shadow Hills compressor. It's down at 149, I think, pounds. I think it's a good deal, and so try it out by any means. And if you have any question, post on Facebook, YouTube, and I'll try to respond as many as I can. Thank you for watching, everybody. If you want more information about our mixing and mastering courses, you can head to www.pointblankmusicschool.com. And happy Friday, everyone. I wish you a great weekend and see you very soon. Bye for now.